Marketing is about values.
Nike didn't call me and sell me this in a catalog. I bought this swoosh because it's ingrained in my soul.
When you have a product that really resonates with customers, the word of mouth grows like wildfire.
Welcome to the Marketing Max Show. Now, let's dive in.
All right, welcome back to the Marketing Max Show. Logan and Max here with you. We're going to get into several segments today. We've got a mailbag question. We're excited to break down Max's 7 winning ad frameworks that you can use if you've been listening to the show and we've been talking about Max's ad funnel and you're like, okay, I got this, but wait, what about the creative? We're going to give you 7 frameworks that you can use, proven to drive results. Before we get to that though, we got to make a bet with you, what we're calling our 5-second bet. And the bet is basically hit subscribe or follow right now on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening or watching. And we bet you that if you subscribe by the end of this show, you're going to have at least one takeaway, something good that you can use from this episode. And if you don't, you can unsmash that subscribe button and you can send a DM to Max at Marketing Max on X and tell him how terrible this episode was. So we got 5 seconds for you to subscribe. Max, you want to count us down, man?
Sure. We'll go from 10 to 5 today. We'll make it interesting. So 10, 9, 8, go ahead and hit subscribe. 7, 6. Why aren't you hitting subscribe? 5. All right, there we go. We're making it interesting.
We got a twist on the 5-second bet today.
That's the bet we place with you guys.
All right. Well, let's dive right into the mailbag. By the way, if you want your questions answered by Max and myself as we riff every week here on the Marketing Max Show, go to growthdaily.com, subscribe, and you'll be able to submit your questions for us for a future mailbag segment. All right, looking over here, we got this one who came in from a listener that said, I love writing ad copy for newsletters and I have a great case study, but I want to do it for podcasts. What should my cold outreach look like? What should I say to podcast advertisers and hosts if I want to do more of this copywriting?
So if you've never sent a cold email before, you might be in for a rude awakening that it's a huge numbers game. Mm-hmm. I really am not a violent person, but I tend to talk about weapons in marketing as analogies. And so cold emailing really is a machine gun strategy. It's a try to just hit as many people as you possibly can and pray and spray, as some people call it, and hope that someone responds, and then A/B testing the creative, meaning the message itself and the subject line itself. For you specifically, because it sounds like you have experience writing newsletter ads and you probably want to position or you probably want to go into podcast ad copywriting because you like podcasts, I would listen to a podcast and I would rewrite one of the ads in the podcast, and then I would send it to 10 people, 20 people, or write 10 different ones and send it to each one. I would find their email and I would email it to the host. I would also find if they have a agent or if they have a company that they're working with. Maybe in the footer of their podcast description, it says like ads brought to you by, or we're on the Colossal Podcast Network or the HubSpot Podcast Network or whatever. Yeah. So I'd go on those people. And then number 3 is I would obviously email the advertiser brand themselves, go on LinkedIn, try to find the marketing person, the head of partnerships, whatever that role is. It's probably head of partnerships, head of influencer marketing at whatever company that is, and send it to them and say, hey, I think this ad is going to be significantly more compelling than the one you wrote, or the ad you wrote maybe isn't exactly in the tone of voice of the podcast listener. I've been listening to this person for 10 years and I wrote it for you. Let me know if you want me to take a stab at future ad copywriting for you. So the trick here is really to go away from the machine gun strategy, sending as many cold emails as you can with the same message to everyone and hoping that they give you a chance, to getting way more proactive and actually listening, doing the work yourself and providing that free sample, and then make that message as complex and as compelling, not complex, but as compelling as you possibly can. That way it's compelling for them to choose you, right? Like it really still is a numbers game. You have to message 20, 30, 40 podcast hosts probably before you even get a response, but you're drastically increasing the chances of you acquiring a new client if you go ahead and do the work first on spec without their permission, you're 99 times better and you're put to the top of the pile than everyone else that's just emailing them, trying to sell them whatever it is that they're selling.
Yep, absolutely, man. I love that you came back around to that. I was like, where's he going with, are you just advising spray and pray? Because then as you got into it, I'm like, no, it's really not spray and pray. It is still a numbers game. Like I've described myself to different people I've worked with of like, I came up in sales, and then I always loved marketing because I have a journalism background. And then in my various marketing roles, like I thought too much like a salesperson to just fit in with the marketers. Because I remember my first in-house job, they were like, oh, we're struggling to get webinar guests. And I was like, well, how many emails did you send to each one? And they were like, well, one. And I was like, the salesperson in me was like, I would be fired from any sales job I ever had if I didn't follow up multiple times, not badgering people, but appropriately, politely persistent. So to our listener here who wrote in the question, like also think about a numbers game in just because you send one email and they don't respond doesn't mean you shouldn't and you can't, and it won't be welcome that you send a follow-up email. Now, don't send 5 across 5 business days. Send an email, wait 3 days. You can even have, if you're customizing the first one, you can have a template for that step 2 and 3, right? Yes. Like, and I would keep it very succinct. It would be like, hey, Max, what'd you think of that sample? That's it, right? Yeah. I think a lot of people who write cold email and write PR pitches, they're writing them like they've got to get everything in there, all the value, all the what ifs, answer all the questions. That's not the purpose of cold email. The purpose of cold email is to start a conversation. You're not trying to close the sale or close the gig, land the job or whatever. You're trying to start a conversation. So make sure that you're staying succinct there. And I love the idea of giving away a sample. It takes more work on the front end, but it will help you avoid the complete spray and pray and increase your conversion rates, just like good ad copy, good ad frameworks that we're going to get to in the next segment there. I've seen this done, kind of this sample methodology. I'm doing it right now in our own work at Business Builders at our agency. Instead of saying, hey, sign up here to get a website review, I'll go to a potential client's website and say, hey, if we were updating your website and maximizing for conversions on your homepage, here's some things that I would do. You don't have a lead magnet here. You know, the header could be more compelling, those sorts of things. And I've seen this done even on LinkedIn where people are doing it publicly. There's a guy, I forget his last name. His first name is Dwas. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. It's Diwas. He's got an agency, I think, called Unchained Agency, where they do video clips. And he's like, if I were doing video clips from this podcast, here's what they would look like. And he does a before, kind of playing a clip of theirs. Maybe they've posted it, or maybe it's just straight out of their long form. And then here's the after. And guess what? He gets the attention of that podcast, but also other people, since he's doing it publicly, are like, well, I'd like you to do that for mine. So there could even be a play there in this route of where you could kind of review or share your sample publicly. What do you think of that, Max?
I mean, I think everything you said is spot on. At first, I was like, man, I'm so glad I brought Logan on as the co-host of the Marketing Max show, because we see eye to eye. And then on the other hand, I know we also disagree on a handful of stuff, which keeps the show interesting. But I particularly love your point about follow-ups. I didn't mention that. I didn't touch on that. I've been fortunate enough. I've been really fortunate to spend the last 10 years meeting thousands of entrepreneurs, thousands of marketers. And one thing I find with particularly first-time entrepreneurs is they don't realize how many times you need to follow up with someone, even after a call. But before the call, or if it's an e-com or whatever, people don't understand how many times your brand needs to actually touch that person in order to make an impression and to get them to the point where they're ready to buy. It's something we've talked about on the show many times before. And if you follow me on Twitter and if you subscribe to my newsletter, you know the data from before says that you need to see, people need to see or hear your brand at least 5 times before they decide if they're going to purchase or not. That study was done almost 20 years ago. Today, that number is closer to 11 or 12 times.
Yeah.
And so my buddy who runs a cold email agency said their average response comes from the 2.8th email. And this guy sends millions of emails a month across all of his clients, and it's 2.8. So that means like the average response, the positive response, is on the 3rd email, where to the example you gave, like I emailed them once, nothing happened, right? hit them multiple times with multiple value props, multiple messages. And particularly when it comes to cold email, absolutely love your second email script. Hey, did you get a chance to read my ad? Right. Hey, what did you think of my ad? Or be as direct as possible.
Open-ended question there of like, I like that. Like, what did you think of that sample? Right.
Yeah. Or to take it a step further, like be as specific to what you want them to come to the conclusion for on their own via the question. So if your goal is to say, or if your main marketing message is to say, hey, you're writing ad copy for Joe Rogan and the copy that you write is not in Joe Rogan's tone of voice, I can write it better because I've been listening to Joe Rogan for a long time, then your follow-up question should be, how do you think the ad script that I wrote for you compares to the ad that you wrote for Joe Rogan? Push them to the conclusion that you want them to find on their own. And if the answer is, I think it's the same, or I don't think it's as good, okay, that's fine. But you want to push them in that direction.
Yeah. Another thing you could think about, ever since I read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Did you ever read that book, Max?
Yeah, I'm in a group chat with a bunch of entrepreneur friends, and it's called Vossy Games. It's a little weird, probably for people to know, but yeah, we're all big Chris Voss fans.
Yeah, I love it. So if you're listening to this and you're not already a big Chris Voss fan, like Max and I and the rest of his group, he's a former FBI hostage negotiator. And you're probably thinking, Logan, Max, why are you guys talking about hostage negotiation? I'm here for marketing tips. Well, it's one of the best communication and sales books, and really marketing is sales at scale, right? And he takes a lot of lessons learned in negotiating with terrorists and people who are holding people hostage in how you can use techniques to understand how people respond. And I've used some of these things. And one of the principles from that book is asking no-based questions. People often think that we want to get people saying yes, but when someone says yes, they're kind of putting themselves out there. They're kind of, okay, what did I just commit myself to? But if you say no, then you're kind of protecting yourself. It's kind of like you and your wife or significant other, you're like, hey, do you want to go to Olive Garden for dinner? Not really. I might want to go to, whatever else. But if you ask, would you be opposed to going to Olive Garden tonight? They're like, no, I wouldn't be opposed to that. Well, they kind of just said yes, but in no fashion. So in our example here, that third follow-up could be like, hey, did I really miss the mark on nailing Joe Rogan's voice? Right? Oh, no, you didn't miss the mark. I was just busy, and then they will start to elaborate. So you could also work into your sequence some sort of no-based question, going back to Chris Voss here. So just one other thought for you.
I haven't read that book in a while, and I forgot about that tip. Every time I think of the book, I think of the late night DJ voice, but it sounds like I need to reread.
Yeah, you got to get close to the mic.
No. Yeah, you got to get really close to the mic and speak in a soft voice because people trust late night radio DJs. But people really, 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 really should read Never Split the Difference. But if you like that tip, to take it a step further, How to Win Friends and Influence People is the Bible of relationships. It's the Bible of relationships in business, in your family, in your life. And it's a similar principle that they talk about in How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I consider to be like top 5 books of all time, regardless of niche and fiction, nonfiction, whatever.
Sales marketing.
The goal is to get people to feel comfortable with the answer. And so, yes, getting them to say no feels a lot more comfortable than being like, yeah, I would, because yes is the commitment. No is like, yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that. Me personally, I would be completely opposed to going to Olive Garden. I've never been and will never go to Olive Garden. Not my style. Much more of an Erewhon Carbone guy. But unlimited breadsticks, marketing play, marketing gimmick. I got to respect that. That.
It worked out better than endless shrimp at Red Lobster, right? There's that.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're going to give unlimited quantities of something, make sure that it's something that can be easily made and have crazy margins with.
Yeah. So, lower cost of making those breadsticks than the shrimp, apparently. All right. We're getting deep into restaurant economics. But with that, thank you for the question. Again, if you want to submit your question, hear us riff and go all over the place from hostage negotiation to Olive Garden, sign up for the newsletter at growthdaily.com and send us your mailbag question. All right, we are on to our next segment, which we're going to break down the 7 winning creative ad frameworks. This was one that I loved from you, Max, and I had myself going back to it as we've been talking about here in recent episodes. I've been using your S2 lead gen form, taking some things from your newsletter ad funnel and applying that to other sorts of lead magnets. But a big component of that is not only the flow, the landing page, it is the creative. So let's walk through these 7 quickly so that, and if you have examples that maybe spring to mind, we can riff on each a little bit. The first one is FFF. So this is not when you stub your toe in the middle of the night and you're just cursing. It's called Feel, Felt, Found. Tell us a little bit about this framework for a winning ad, Max.
Yeah, so super quick, just for context, for those of you that maybe are listening for the first time or don't know much about me, I ran a Facebook and Google ads agency for 5 years. I was one of the first people to do it in the startup space back in 2016, built it up to 7 figures in revenue. We drove $100 million in attributable revenue for our clients. And I still run a bunch of ads today. So just to give some context into, my background, I'm a Facebook ads guy, and I've been using these frameworks for a while. These are not mine. I got them from someone else. I honestly forget exactly who I got them from forever ago. So I will find it and put it in the show notes to source that person to give proper credit. But every time I create an ad, which is multiple times a day, I have these in Notion, and I try to make sure that the copy that I'm writing or the video that I'm editing for the client or for my own brands has one of these in there. So yes, the first one is Feel, Felt, Found. And I like to start with this one, and I have it at the top of my list in Notion because it really comes down to connecting with someone on a pain level. And referencing the book that we just talked about, How to Win Friends and Influence People, they talk a lot in that book about how the fastest way to build rapport with someone, the fastest way to build a strong connection is to actually find a mutual disinterest, find something that you both don't like, rather than finding something that you both like. And so you can do the same thing with your ads by essentially, number one, emphasizing that they have a pain right now, identifying that they have their pain. So you want to identify that they feel this pain. That's what the F in feel stands for. Then you want to share a relatable experience that either you had, or if it's a UGC video for e-commerce, like I've been there because, and then mention that you felt this pain before too. So you identify that you both are feeling the pain, you've felt the pain yourself, and then you found the product or the solution or the cure, right? You found the product, I should say, that is the solution or the cure. So you first you identify that you both feel the same thing, or at least they feel that way. You identify that you felt the same way before, and then you say you found the solution. It's not all that different from the hero's journey, which I know we've talked about on this podcast before, but literally breaking it down to step 1, step 2, step 3, feel, felt, found has made it 40 million times easier for me to write copy and create ads that really, really, really connect with people as they're scrolling through the millions of memes and cat videos and everything else that they're on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm a big fan of that hero's journey framework. We actually just did a webinar earlier this week on the 7 parts to the hero's journey. There's a hero who has a problem, who meets a guide, who gives them a plan, calls them to action that either ends in success or failure. If you want to check that out, we'll link to that in the show notes of this episode, so you can watch the replay. We go into that hero's journey in depth. But I think the boiling it down to this feel, felt, found, we oftentimes jump to the found of I found the cure. I see it in breaking down homepage copy and stuff all the time with this 7-part hero's journey framework. Is we just want to talk about the success. And if they're the hero, all they can see is the problem in front of them. And if you can relate to that, then you're going to stop the scroll. As they say, common experiences create bonds. Common trauma creates even stronger bonds. And so if you can bond over that pain that you both feel, back to what you said a couple of minutes ago, hit back on this one, even if you don't stick around for all 7, which I think you will. Listen to what Max said on the feel, felt, found, and your ads will be so much better.
Really quick.
Go for it, man.
For B2B, if you're in B2B and you're listening and you're like, man, I don't know how this applies to B2B. Most people who start businesses because they felt a pain themselves. Most entrepreneurs felt pain themselves. So if you're a marketer, if you're a CMO and you're listening to this, Go to your CMO, go Slack them after you've listened to this episode and after you subscribe to this episode. But go Slack your founder or your CEO and say, hey, can you just record a quick video, talking head, selfie on the phone, saying like, man, I was really struggling with, tracking people in HR softwares. And so I ended up creating, this thing, identifying that as a B2B marketing strategy can be insanely more effective than, to Logan's point, like, hey, this is the best HR software and here are 3 reasons why, right? Identifying the pain and letting people know that the entrepreneur found the pain first, super valuable. I won't take up as much time for all the other ones, but let's get it.
We've got, I think we've gotten, the value out of that subscription button in just this first one. But we do want to cover these others because there's good ones in here too. All right. The next one is alliterative with 4 P's. So PP, picture, promise, prove, push. Break this one down for us real quick, Max.
Yeah. So the first thing, and I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, or I've used this analogy before, like you want to paint the picture as clearly as possible of what they're going through or what the problem is for anyone. So paint the picture, the first P. Then you want to promise a solution. Right. So paint the picture. If you're struggling with XYZ, right, then promise the solution. I can help you fix it, or I can help you do XYZ. Right. The third P is prove. Right. You want to prove that you can get results. So if you're struggling with X, I can help you solve it with Y because I've done it.
Because that because is very important, right? Causes them not to tune it out.
Exactly. Because I've done it for 300 other people, right? That's what the third P is, prove. Because I've done it for 300 other people, and you can name drop if you want. And then the fourth is just push them to the call to action, right?
Yep.
So if you want that help like these 300 other people have, then click below, sign up, do whatever the call to action is.
I think just like in the feel, felt, found, we oftentimes as marketers, we want to lead with the found. We want to lead with the cure. We want to lead with the success, going back to the hero's journey framework. And in this one, we often want to lead with the proven results, like to see ads of like award-winning HR software or, industry leading, It's not that you don't want to do that. In the hero's journey, you want to position yourself as the guide with both empathy and authority. And what we're talking about here is authority, like the prove is the authority piece. But if you lead with that, then people tune it out because they think you're just talking about yourself and how great you are. But if you put it in the context of when they're asking of like, yeah, I feel that pain. I would like that promised solution. Can I trust you? When they're asking that, can I trust you? That's when you go with, here's the authority, here's the proof. But if you lead with that, they're not asking that question yet. So I love this framework for that reason. Number 3, pretty straightforward, problem, solution framework. Again, starting with the pain, starting with the problem. Don't put the solution first, I think is the big thing on this one, right?
Yeah, I think the big lesson 3 and it's the same for all of them, is most people, when they create ads, they immediately get to the value prop. They immediately get to why you should buy, why you should buy, why you should buy. And it's kind of the main lesson at the end of The Wolf of Wall Street, right? Sell me this pen. And everyone immediately is like, this is a beautiful pen and it's great and you can click and it'll make you look professional. But in reality, you want to establish that they have the problem first, not just because you want to qualify them, but also you want them mentally to just feel the pain that they're going through right now. You want to like plant that little seed in their head, be like, oh yeah, shit, I do have this problem. Oh yeah, I've been looking to solve that. Oh, you have the solution, right? So starting with the problem is the main lesson here. And yeah, I mean, short problem solution, simply state the problem and then present your solution in as quickly time as possible.
Yep. So 3 and 4 on our list are problem solution. And then the 4th is short problem solution. We could probably come up with, variations of these maybe in the future to encourage you guys who are just listening on Apple and Spotify. Maybe we'll do some visuals of breaking down ads and give you a reason to come over and see Max and my smiling faces over on YouTube. But for now, we'll leave it at that. We've got 5, 6, and 7 here left to go. Number 5 is 3 reasons why. Break this one down for us real quick, Max.
So the 3 reasons why is the overwhelming, compelling pitch about why people should even consider this in any way, shape, or form. And you want to keep it short and you want to keep it sweet, but you really, really, really want to keep it powerful. And so typically once you've established that problem, so if you're struggling with your annual reviews with your employees, here are 3 reasons why this tool, this solution, this process system, whatever it is that you're selling, will help make them 10x easier, or will help them make them 10x more effective so that your team can do X, Y, Z. So always establish the problem first. Always, 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 right? But then give a very, very, very compelling 3 reasons why as quickly as possible. The thing that makes this work so well is the reason why BuzzFeed went so viral so many years ago. Listicles absolutely crush it. They get people to stick around. They get people curious about what is number 2, what is number 3, what is number 10, what is number whatever. So start with, here's the problem, and this is 3 reasons why this thing that I'm trying to sell you will help you solve that problem.
Yeah. It's also when writing podcast episode titles or YouTube headlines, video titles, I'm always looking, can I put a number in there? Because it gives some barriers around, like, what am I getting into? I want to know it's kind of contained. I only have so much time. I only have so much attention to give. We say that people have short attention spans. It's actually more that they have short consideration spans. It's like, how I only have a little bit of time to decide if this is worth my time. And if you're saying, it's all these reasons why, I don't know. Oh, it's 3. I got time for 3. Let me check them out. Right. All right. Number 6, and speaking of lists, the before and after bridge. And then we're going to get to number 7. See how that one's keeping you waiting to figure out what is number 7 on the list, just to, harken back to what we were just saying. All right. The before and after bridge, Max.
So the before and after bridge is simply, what was life like before your product and what is life like after your product? So in that vein, or in that regard, the first thing, not to sound like a broken record or beat a dead horse, but the first thing is you want to start with their current problem, right? Like, what is life like now for you? Or we're going to tell the story. Like sometimes in ads, it'll be like, meet Adam. Adam was struggling with XYZ. And then people go like, oh, I'm struggling with XYZ. And then from there, you want to explain how your product bridges the gap from where they are now to after. So your product, your service, whatever it is that you're selling, is the bridge that connects the current struggle to the future happy state. So for example, meet Adam. He was struggling with XYZ. Then he hired our marketing agency, and now he's no longer struggling with XYZ. If you can paint that picture, like I talked about before, I use that analogy a lot. You can paint that picture as clearly as possible. Right? Really think about what is the person who you are trying to sell to really struggling with, right? Yep. Like if you're a marketing agency, to use that example that just popped in my head, if you're a marketing agency and you sell leads as a service, right? If you help people get leads, it might be easy to say, meet Adam. He was struggling to get leads, right? Then he hired us and he had leads. Very basic, elementary school, right? Let's take it a step further. Meet Adam. He was struggling to fill pipeline for his salespeople or to book calls on the calendar for his salespeople, which led to his slowest months ever. He then hired our agency that was able to do XYZ, and now his salespeople are super happy, right? Now salespeople love him and are very grateful. Now at the strings of something that's more of a pain for Adam, because his salespeople might be hitting up like, yo, I need more leads. Yo, I need more leads. And now he's like, shit, I don't have leads. I'm not going to make any money. My good salesperson is going to leave because I can't get them leads. It plucks at something deeper. So always, 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 when you use this before and after bridge creative ad framework, always take an extra split second, literally an extra split second, to think, what is the most painful thing associated with what they're experiencing now that I can start this ad with?
Yeah. Something we talked about earlier this week on that webinar, again, plug again, if you want to go deeper on the hero's journey story framework, check it out with the link below, is when we talk about the character and the problem, oftentimes we only talk about external problems. And to your point is like, pick out a little bit more, pull on that thread, and you will find internal problems. And sometimes you'll even find like philosophical problems. Like, isn't it just plain wrong that you work so hard, but you're not filling up your sales team's calendar with leads, right? And that is not just like, oh, I don't have leads. it's like, isn't it just plain wrong? And they're like, yeah, it is. Yeah, that sucks. It shouldn't be that way. Now you've got them in kind of unearthed a different emotional state where they're really resonating with what you're saying. So think about that. And the problem, it's not just external. That's kind of where we start, but it shouldn't be where we end. We find those internal and those philosophical problems if you can state them that way. All right, not to be outdone. Number 7, Spy Life. This one is kind of intriguing. It's not as straightforward. Everybody who kind of heard me say the name of the first 6 frameworks, like, okay, I think I know where Logan and Max are going now. Spy Life, you're probably like, well, what the heck? So let's fill them in, Max.
Yeah, so Spy Life is the last one on purpose. What every single company does when they're starting to create ads is they pull up their competitors' Facebook ad library, or they Google and look at their competitors' Google ads, and they just mimic, how can we do that better? How can we do that for us? And it's lazy marketing. It's not terrible marketing, and I do it sometimes, but Spy Life is essentially analyzing your competitors, reviewing the insights of what might be working, what might not be working for them, and then creating ads that address similar pain points and highlighting the strengths of choosing you guys. I really, 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 really don't like this because it creates the same ad in the industry for multiple options of who to work with. And the
contributes even more to the sea of sameness that you're trying to break out of as a marketer, right?
Exactly. The whole point of marketing is to stand out from your competition. And so many companies I meet, I'm like, oh, where'd you get the inspo for this ad? Oh, well, our competitors ran a similar meme, or our competitors had a similar tagline. It's like, oh, so you want to look like your competition? And then they're always like, well, they're much bigger than us. They justify it like, oh, if it's working for them because they're way bigger, it'll work for us. And 9 times out of 10, I can tell you, I don't know why actually, people always ask me why, but 9 times out of 10, I can tell you, if it's working for a very big competitor, it's probably not going to work for you. There is something about their brand. Maybe they've been around for a long time. Maybe they're spending more money. Maybe their landing page is better. There's something about it that will probably not let that same ad, tagline, target audience, landing, whatever it is, that ad creative, it's something that's probably not going to work for you. So what I do, pro tip, if you made it to the end of the podcast and you're listening, here's the pro tip that's not on the list of 7 that I strongly recommend you do, is to go find a similar ad in a completely different industry and see how you can adapt that to your product, to your service, to your industry. That is the real pro tip, the real growth hack unlock of ad creative. If you can find something that works for a dog food brand and you can make that work for your HR software, or if you can find something that works for HR software and make that work for your dog food brand, that's where you're really, really, really standing out from the crowd and doing something really unique and different. That's good marketing.
Absolutely. Because what you're probably pulling from them is good storytelling, right? It's not about the feature or the pain point or the benefit. It is how they told the story that then you could apply over here. Final plug for that webinar on storytelling. It's in the show notes, y'all. But really, a less, self-promotional thing. I've heard from my good buddy, James Carberry, who runs an agency that does B2B video podcasts. And they've been looking at how they strategize shows for clients. And they advise them to create, I'm going to butcher it, the name of it. I can't remember how they name it, but basically create a list of 10 channels in your space that like you aspire to be. And then create a list of another 10 the dream 10 and the model 10. And the model 10 is folks that are outside of your space, but there's some sort of framework, there's some sort of the way they do segments or the content that you can pull from that then apply to your channel in your space. So you can borrow from what's working in your space, but then you can pluck outside your space, bring it in, and then actually stand out against those competitors that maybe are even bigger than you. Just goes to show the power of storytelling and kind of taking your blinders off, picking your, not living in your little B2B marketing silo can help. All right. Well, that's what we've got for today, Max. This has been a great one. Thank you for the mailbag questions, everybody. If you are not If now you're unsubscribing, go DM Max on X at Marketing Max. Let him know that this episode sucked. If it didn't suck, though, text a friend. You're probably thinking of somebody who would find this content valuable. Send them a text to the link to this episode. Recommend that they subscribe, and we'll see you and your friend next week. Until next time, Logan and Max signing off. See you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Max show. It takes me and my team hours to produce it every single week, but it only takes you 15 seconds to hit that share button and text it to a friend, drop it in a Slack group, or share it on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or any of your favorite social platforms. I appreciate you taking the time to check out my content. Have an awesome day.